friends, welcome back to another episode of Coffee at Rosevine Cottage. Grab a cup of coffee and we're going to dive right in. As the Lord led the Israelites out of Egypt in Exodus 13, the Bible explains why he led them through the desert. Despite the fact that they left arrayed for battle, they were not prepared to face the battles which lay ahead. So God takes them the long way around. They've crossed the Red Sea. They've witnessed the Lord's provision. They've learned to step in tandem with God, but they're still complaining and falling back into those old ways of thinking, of asking God why he brought them out into the wilderness to kill them. So when we reach Exodus 17, we're taken a bit by surprise with what we read. At the beginning of this chapter, the Israelites are echoing the same complaints they had been this whole trip. The same worries from the last time and things got a little uncomfortable. They've seen over and over again that the Lord will provide, and yet they still doubt. We find the people in the midst of another tantrum session, whining and worrying that he won't come through with the water they need again. Sure, he came through last time, but what about this time? It seems to be a theme through this 40-year trek of the Bible. But as we continue to read, spoiler, he comes through, we find that the Israelites now face the very thing they went off-roading to avoid: battle. I'm going to be honest, I have to wonder what makes them more prepared now. They're still doubting, they're still messing up, still doubting God's grace, and surely it would be better to go around. What makes them qualified to face battle now? What didn't they have at the beginning of the trip that they've got now? I didn't read about any boot camp or basic training. In fact, Moses was just asking the people why they were putting the Lord their God to the test. These people sound anything but battle ready. So what changed? Was it maybe the blisters? The calluses that reminded them of every time they thought they were lost. Every time they thought it was the end. Every time there was no way out and he came through. Maybe the provision they had witnessed every step of this journey from the moment they were set free to this patch of sand. The provision they'd held in their own hands and seen with their own eyes. Perhaps they needed the lessons they learned on the way to this spot to prepare them for the fight. They needed some experience under their belt so they'd be ready for battle. There's no water, but he's our provider. There's no food, but he's our life giver. It's not what I expected. It's not as easy as I thought it was going to be, but he is my sustainer. They've come as far as they can, and now they've got to deal with some things. In their case, it's the Amalekites. It's a physical army. It's something they can see. But I bet there are some of us who need to deal with some things too. Maybe it's not something we physically need to attack, but maybe it's something emotionally or spiritually. Maybe it's been ravaging through your family for generations, and here is where it needs to be laid to rest. Here is where the battle needs to be waged because we can't go forward. We can't move into our promised lands until this battle is won. But we've been running. We've got the armor. We've seen his provision. But we doubt our ability to win the battle. We're afraid that it will be too hard to beat. And deep down, you know he's with you, but all you can see is the enemy. All you can see is the issue, the thing that needs to be vanquished, and it feels so big. We know God's right there with us. We know he has led us to this place. You've seen the pillar and the cloud, but you still can't see the way out. Maybe that's the whole purpose of this season, the whole lesson of the dry season, to compound in our memory that he will always make a way. No matter how dark it gets, no matter how big it looks or painful it feels, he will always make a way. We may not understand it. It may not make sense. It may not even look like we thought it would, but he will always come through. I can't help but wonder what Joshua was thinking as Moses tells him to take some men and go out to fight, while he stands on a hill holding his staff in the air. Hold on. Let me get this straight. I'm going into battle while you stand on a hill holding a stick over your head. Right. That's showing up, Moses. I think you've been in the sun just a little too long. The desert's getting to you. Moses doesn't tell Joshua what the result will be. He also does not explain why he is going to do this. He just tells Joshua to go. And the Bible doesn't record a response, only that the next morning he goes out with the men he selected to fight. He doesn't have the whole picture, but he goes anyway. Moses heads up the hill, and it still doesn't make sense. And he lifts that staff in the air, and the Israelites begin to win the battle. But it doesn't look like they thought it was going to. They witness the Red Sea swallowing the last enemy they face, but this time it's different. This time they have a more proactive role. This time they are fighting. There are some places he leads us where we have to pick up our own swords and do battle with some things that have come to the surface in our lives. Maybe it's an addiction. Maybe it's the way we're thinking. Maybe it's the words we are speaking. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's some areas in our heart that need to be taken back. Maybe it's something that has torn through your family for generations, and he has brought you to this place so you can pick up your sword, look it in the eye, and say, I have carried you out of captivity with me, and I have carried you across this wasteland, but I am not taking you one more step. You have no place in the promised land on the other side of this season, and I may not be able to see the way, and I may not feel prepared, but I read the back of the book, and I know the victory is mine. I think this is what makes verse 14 stand out so much. The Lord tells Moses to write down what happened that day so that it would be remembered. But then he tells Moses to make sure Joshua hears about it. Joshua was there. He had firsthand experience of what transpired, and yet God wants Moses to make sure that he hears. Joshua had witnessed the battle in a front row seat, so why is it necessary to make sure he knows? Isn't that just a little obvious? Hey Joshua, you won! Yeah, I know, thanks. Could it be that he was too close? That he was so busy fighting that he couldn't understand why? He was reacting to the situation, and so could it be that he couldn't see what God was doing? Might it be that we get so caught up in fighting the battles we're facing that we forget that we miss what God's done? Even though we don't understand, even though we can't see him, he's never left our side. In the thick of the battle, he is still providing, still meeting every need. So the Lord tells Moses to make sure that Joshua knows. Tell him I was at work. And not only did I give you the victory over this battle, but I am blotting out of the name of those that you just fought. And I am not just giving you this battle. I didn't just promise you this battle, but I am giving you the entire war. I didn't just make you the overcomer. I made you the victor. That thing you've been wrestling with, I already crushed it. And I did it in a way that you never expected. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video blessed you. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. Like the video and join us again next week.